Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the New York Red Bulls Experience podcast. This is something I've been wanting to do for a little while and have a platform beyond my normal cadence of posts on Instagram, and I think it's cool to try this out. We'll see if it sticks. We'll see if it works. It's exciting to branch out into a new format. It's been great to listen to a bunch of the other New York Red Bulls podcasts, Seeing Red, of course, and The View from 202, just to name a few of them. Yeah, thought I'd try out this new format and see how it goes. So I've got an agenda to run through for the first episode. May bring on a co-host, may bring in guests. We'll see how this evolves over time, but the first one will be, I guess, pretty bare bones, but hopefully you guys will enjoy, and there's some meaning a lot of things to get through. Yeah, I'm recording this after our game against Charlotte FC, a return to MLS play after Leagues Cup, a 1-1 draw. We'll get more into that recap later. We're getting to the business end of the season, 8 games left in the regular season to push for the playoffs, and it's gonna be a wild ride. So here we go. I'm gonna start off with my history of being a fan as a way to kind of set the tone. By the way, my name is Luca. I am the creator and manager of New York Red Bulls Experience on Instagram, and I've been growing the page for 6 years at this point, which is kind of crazy. That's who I am. And in terms of me as a fan, I grew up in northern New Jersey, went to Metro Stars games as soon as I could really walk, I guess, or maybe even before I could walk. My first game is, I believe, September 20th, 2003, which I looked that game. I have no memory of that game, obviously, because I wasn't even 2 years old yet. But it was a 1-0 win against the Columbus Crew at Giant Stadium for the Metro Stars. John Wolyniec scored the lone goal of the match, which was actually that iconic John Wolyniec one-timer volley. An insane goal that was, I think, maybe up for goal of the year, and just one of the most iconic goals of this franchise's history. So it was kind of cool that was my first game there. I, of course, have no memory of that. But the ties with my family to supporting soccer in the New York metro area run pretty deep. My grandfather, living in the Bronx growing up, would just watch whatever local soccer there was there in the 40s and 50s, and then when the NASL came around with the Cosmos, my grandpa, my dad, and my uncle were there, season tickets for the Cosmos through the Pele years, before or after, and when MLS came around, they were one of the first people to snag Metro Stars season tickets, and my family's been there since 96. So even though I'm born in 2001, my family's name has been in the Metro Stars Red Bulls universe, going to games, being a part of the fan base since 1996. So take a lot of pride in that. You always got to support your local team. Whatever is your local team, that's who you have to support. Big believer of that. And that's who I am as a fan. Been to so many games over the years, obviously a bunch at Giant Stadium. When Red Bull Arena opened, I was in second grade. So really getting to see the big years of Thierry Henry and the managerial eras of Hans Baca, Mike Petke, Jesse Marsh, all the supporter shields, the real dynasty that was the New York Red Bulls from 2013 to 2018. Just really exciting to be there for all of that. Yeah, this club is in my blood. It's why I made this page, to get closer to the fan base and connect with you guys and build a community. And it's been an exciting time, and it's really deepened my fandom too over the past 6 years of me running the page. So that's a bit about who I am, how I got into the Red Bulls. Just really, it was my local team from the start. I was born into it, and that's the beauty of it. I wouldn't have it any other way. This is my club. So got the long-winded recap of my fandom out of the way. Let's jump into a few things that really happened over the long break. So I'm going to kind of recap basically everything in the past few months, summer of soccer, as we get back into this late stage of the MLS season. So I'm going to start with the Olympics. Really exciting opportunity. The Olympics and Copa America and the Euros. Really exciting opportunity for some of our guys to get international experience this summer. I was really excited to make a few of those graphics celebrating Lewis Morgan, Carlos Cornell, and John Tolkien for their respective call-ups. Lewis didn't really feature too much at the Euros, but just for him to be on that stage with Scotland was really exciting to see. And yeah, just really cool seeing him in that environment. It was a late call-up for him, but just really valuable experience for him. Carlos Coronel with Copa America. Paraguay didn't necessarily have the best time in the tournament, and you could maybe attribute that to Carlos being put out of the rotation. He has been pretty much the starting Paraguay goalkeeper for a while and just wasn't selected by their coach to be the starting keeper for the tournament, and they were grouped. They were eliminated in the group stage. So not necessarily saying Carlos would have completely revolutionized that team, but an interesting summer for him. But the biggest international stage that one of our players had was John Tolkien at the Olympics with the U.S. men's national team, the under-23 team that you sent to the Olympics. And they had a pretty good run. JMI played a lot of minutes, and they had a great run to the quarterfinals, lost to Morocco, but really good performances in the group stage. Obviously, the opening game loss against France, who went on to the final. But JMI did have really good experience with those guys. Looked like he had a great time. Looked like just the vibe at the Olympics, I feel like, was buzzing. And it was fun to just follow some of the soccer. It's been a very exhausting summer of soccer, which I'm sure a lot of you guys can agree with me on that. And Leagues Cup obviously is kind of, I think, where the attention span is kind of dwindling just toward the end of the summer. It's been a lot, but it's been really, really fun. And yeah, the Olympics were great, and JMI, great experience going to the quarterfinals. So let's get into Leagues Cup. Thankfully, we can put Leagues Cup behind us. The final happened last night, Columbus Crew defeating LAFC in the final. The Red Bulls in the second edition of the Leagues Cup were grouped. The Red Bulls were in a group with Toronto FC and Club Pachuca of Liga MX. They did not officially lose at all. We haven't lost a game since June 8th against New England. And that is a positive, but we also picked up 2 draws at home and lost in penalty kick shootouts 3 days apart. Like 2 consecutive eliminations. Not really eliminations because it was points-based, but 3 days apart, 2 consecutive eliminations. A 0-0 draw with Toronto, and then against Pachuca, a game in which we did not rotate the squad. Against Toronto, there was a bit of heavy rotation, and I think that was good. You had guys like Julian Hall starting, just switching it up a bit in, a game that is basically a glorified league game against Toronto. So I think it was good from Sandro to rotate the boys a little bit. But for Pachuca, a bigger Liga MX opponent, the Red Bulls basically put out a full-strength squad, and it was a really interesting game. I was there. The atmosphere was not my favorite, just obviously with the nature of it kind of being a neutral venue. A lot of the Leagues Cup, or all of the Leagues Cup games rather, are neutral. So when Pachuca scored, they played music and the lights went off and everything, and it's just icky. Like, that's one of the things I hate the most about Leagues Cup, that it doesn't feel like there's a home field advantage when you host, because the sites are treated as neutral. Anyway, the game itself against Pachuca was, I think, a very good performance. Very solid from the Red Bulls, able to dictate a lot of the tempo. And Pachuca were definitely, bringing it to the Red Bulls, a very fast-paced game. But the Red Bulls were able to just really break them down and dominate the game. But again, besides the Elias Manuel goal in that game, no real clear-cut chances for the Red Bulls to really just score and just, keep tacking the goals on. It just ended at that Elias Manuel kind of another banger. He really only scores bangers. We'll get to him later when we talk about the Charlotte game. So mixed bag for Leagues Cup, and we were the first team to be eliminated because we played 2 group stage games so close together. But ultimately, I think it could be to our benefit, just having, guys be able to rest and recover from injuries, and I think that's the biggest thing this summer needed. We've had a busy summer, and I think it was good to have a few weeks off. Obviously, you could talk about momentum, and it just really killed momentum. The guys that didn't play a competitive game for 25 days. But ultimately, I think it's okay. Just time where we don't have to play games with Emil Forsberg still injured, some of our other injuries, getting, visas set up for, our new signing of the summer. So I think it was good to have some of that time off for those things to, settle, and we can move on from Leagues Cup. It's not a tournament that I hate. I think it's okay in its current format. Obviously, the fact that it comes at the expense of the US Open Cup is something that is definitely frustrating. I think it has the potential to be really good, but it's just not there yet for me. It's a few steps away from being truly great. I think one big first step would be to have games played in Mexico. It would elevate it so much. Just sending MLS teams down to the Azteca and a lot of those big Mexican stadiums that are hard for MLS teams to win in. A lot of them are at altitude as well. So I think that would just really increase the stakes of the tournament. Definitely less revenue for MLS because some of the games will be on the road. But I think ultimately that would be a big way to boost the tournament. And there are a lot of other ways it can be improved. But I am happy that we're back in the MLS season and just making this final push to the playoffs. Let's look ahead at the rest of the MLS schedule real quick. So we had Charlotte this past weekend. A quick Charlotte game recap was more of the same for the Red Bulls. Another draw this summer. In the past, since our last game that we lost against New England on June 8th, I think it's something like we're undefeated in 9, but it's 7 draws and 2 wins or something like that. I think that's the correct number. It's around there. So just seeing that is really crazy. Just really crazy that it's kind of a lot of repetition of, we're able to get a goal. We're able to kind of have like 1 or 2 chances. And then after that, it just ends. And we can't get another. We can't have that extra decisive piece to find a winner, to have someone really step in and be that hero, be that game winner. And it was more of the same against Charlotte. Just a really poor foul from Kyle Duncan that caused the penalty kick. But then the response was beautiful. That was one of our best goals this season. Just on the counter, the Noah Isla beautiful ball to Dante Vanzier, who has his signature sweeping, flanking runs. Bit of a weak pass, but found Elias Manuel, who does what he does against Charlotte, score a banger. He also just only scores bangers. Like, the power of each of his shots, regardless of where he shoots them, like, the power is just there. And that really gives me confidence. I am an Elias Manuel fan. I definitely am. The consistency obviously needs to kind of creep up, hopefully. But I'm a fan of him. I'm excited to see him continue, and I think he can turn into a great striker for this club. Dante, everyone knows how we feel about Dante Vanzier. Just not able to really get a lot of goals. He does a lot of those like sweeping runs, and when you're playing with 2 up top, he's more often than not providing the assists and not finding the back of the net himself. And I think he's good at it. I think he does really well to press and does well on the ball, and can get into dangerous areas and play dangerous passes in. So that was another good example for Dante, I think, against Charlotte. But yeah, another disappointing point. It's not disappointing in the context of you go on the road and you get a point, and we're going to be home next weekend against Philly, hopefully with maybe 1 or 2 players coming back from injury. But it just was, it wasn't a resounding we're back. We use these 25 days off to really improve and and we're gonna put this game away. But maybe that'll happen against Philly on Saturday. So looking ahead, we've got 8 matches left. We've got Philly at home. Then we've got Sporting Kansas City at home the week later. We do a trip out to Chicago, come back, game against Atlanta, hosting Dax McCarty, former Red Bull. We'll get to his retirement in a little bit. Then it's the Derby, right? A week later against NYCFC. Then we've got 2 away games, one against Toronto and one against, I'm blanking on the other one, but one of them is a Wednesday game. And then we finish things out against Columbus on decision day, which should be a pretty interesting game. Hopefully we'll clinch a playoff spot by then, but that'll be 2 top teams going at it on the final day of the regular season. So the Red Bulls only face Columbus as a team that is above them in the standings for the rest of the season. That is something to be excited about. We're not playing a lot of teams that are like super, like crazy in the Supporters' Shield race. We're not playing Miami. We're not playing Cincinnati. We're not playing LAFC. I mean, obviously we're not playing a lot of the West Coast teams anyway, but the only game really is against Columbus. I just looked at the schedule. The Wednesday game is against Toronto, and then we have Saturday, October 5th on the road against Atlanta. We've yet to play Atlanta at all this season, so we've got 2 fixtures against them. So I think out of those 8 games, the Red Bulls should be able to win 4 of them. I think that would be great. Just win 4 of those games. That's my bare minimum for really being satisfied, and I think that would be the bare minimum to keep us in 4th place. I think there isn't really a universe in where the Red Bulls win less than 4 games and are still hosting a first round playoff series. NYCFC is below us, knocking on the door. So is Charlotte. We really just need to keep picking up the points. And I think Philly at home, I mean, it's rough. We haven't really beaten them since 2019, so I don't know if we'll be able to come out of there with a win. It would be incredible if we did. I think we should be able to beat Atlanta at home. We should hopefully be able to beat Sporting Kansas City, who have not been having an incredible year. Maybe we go on the road and get a surprise road win in Chicago. That's happened in the past. Could be a possibility, and it would be great to win the New York Derby game. That would just be a really nice definitive. That's going to be a 6-pointer game. 2 teams really just in the playoff push. So would be good to get 4 wins out of the remaining 8, but we'll see. We're still undefeated at home in 2024. Would be crazy if we went the whole season without losing at home. That would be, I think, a first. That would be a record. So that I think is a cool stat, even though a lot of the home games that are part of the undefeated record or draws, I get that, but I think that's still really cool. This season is the first season where it's felt like a fortress. I mean, whatever. Every year since 2018-19 has been dismal in some way, shape, or form. But this is the first year where we truly have a fortress again, where we're not losing at home. 2022, we had a fantastic season, but if you remember, that was the road season where we got 30 points total on the road the whole season, which was a record. And at home, we did not have good form. It was a weird season where we were just so good on the road, and we didn't get our first home win until late May. I think it was the last week of May, Memorial Day weekend was our first home win that whole season. So this is the first season where it's felt like a fortress since 2018, 2019. And that has been, I think, one of the best parts about the season. So we'll see. Interesting schedule coming up. 8 games left. And let's go for it. Let's do it, baby. Pushing for our 15th consecutive MLS Cup playoffs appearance. Now let's talk a little bit more about Charlotte, because I think one of the nicest storylines was Tim Ream returning to MLS. Tim Ream is someone who, was really young, 8, 9, 10 in the early years of Red Bull Arena. Tim Ream was one of those first guys who just really left an impact in those first 2 years. He was, super draft pick in 2010 and had 2 seasons with the Red Bulls, a consistent starter. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember that goal line clearance he had. Just really a really incredible journey. Then he goes off to Bolton and then Fulham, and had a really incredible career in England, and then coming back into the conversation with the national team and starting in the 2022 World Cup and being that big veteran in the back line for them, I think was a really cool arc for him. And vindicating his career was the wrong word, but just really nice validation that you can still have success by going to college in the US, and then you can still pursue a career in Europe. And I think it was just a really cool trajectory for Tim. Seeing him come back to MLS with Charlotte, it was interesting that, his first game, he's debuting against his former club, the club that first gave him a chance in this league. And there's a really cool picture that the Red Bulls actually just put out this morning. I'm recording this on Monday, of him and Julian Hall dapping each other up after the game. And, Tanner Rosberg was also in the background of that photo. And, it was past and future, shaking hands. And I think that was that was definitely a moment where I was like, I am feeling old. This player, Tim Ream, when I was a kid, just watching him, now he's on the verge of retirement, a new chapter in MLS, and he's playing against the future of the Red Bulls and Julian Hall, 16-year-old phenom, just getting his start in MLS. So I think that was a really cool moment over the weekend, and something I wanted to touch on, just the career of Tim Ream, and just a really cool piece of Red Bulls history. I actually met him at some event at the Soccer Post in Eatontown, New Jersey, when I was in third grade, I think. So just a class guy, and just cool to see him back in the league. I definitely feel old seeing him back in the league, but yeah, it was a really nice moment to face him over the weekend. And then Dax McCarty's retirement got announced last week. Dax announcing that at the end of the season, he will complete his 19th professional season and retire with Atlanta United. And another childhood legend of mine, and, for most of you as well, I assume, if you were a kid when I was, Dax McCarty, Red Bulls legend. He and Atlanta are coming to Red Bull Arena on September 21st. I think they gotta do a Legends Row induction ceremony, dude. I get what they did with Luis, and he had already been retired, and maybe that's a consideration. You do it after a legend retires. I'm sure they're gonna, even if they don't induct him into Legends Row, I'm sure they're gonna do something honoring him. They've done it with all the past players who have come back. They did it with Tom Barlow. They did it with Brian White. They did it with Drew Yearwood. I know those were the first times they'd come back to Red Bull Arena, and Dax has been to Red Bull Arena since he's left the Red Bulls. But just do something to honor him. Even if it's not Legends Row, do something, and maybe Legends Row comes in the future. This guy is just an MLS legend. I'm sure you guys agree with me on this, that you just love seeing those MLS lifers succeed. And there's no shame in being an MLS lifer. People bag on it so much. Oh, they never went off to Europe. Oh, they're not good enough for the national team. I genuinely don't care. If you ball in MLS, and if you go around to a few teams and you consistently do well, obviously Kai Kamara is a glittering example of that. Other players I love, Darlington Nagbe, these are guys that are just dogs. They're literally dogs. Dax McCarty, just the scrappiest, grittiest, most hardworking veteran, the ginger ninja of the Red Bulls for 5 years. 2011 to 2016, he saw a few eras of the Red Bulls for sure. Was the 2015 and 2016 captain, so he had 3-4 years under his belt, and then led the team with the armband after Thierry Henry left. 2015 MLS Best 11 selection, 2013 and 2015 Supporter Shield winner. This guy really was so integral to that first Jesse Marsch season when he captained it. That was such a pivotal year for the Red Bulls, as you all remember, the town hall, right? Why did you fire Petke? One of the biggest turning points in club history. And Dax was at the head of that team that proved everyone wrong. The first year in the Jesse Marsch high press energy drink soccer model that topped the Eastern Conference, topped the entire league, gave the Red Bulls their second Supporter Shield in 3 seasons, and he was part of that 2013 team as well. Just incredible, just moments. Obviously goals, but just so many moments being a boss in the midfield. Some clutch goals. the last second diving header against Real Salt Lake in 2013. I mean, that's one of his most iconic moments. Just an incredible personality, player, guy. Wish him nothing but the best in retirement. What a legend. What a legend. And just so grateful that he was a part of my childhood and a part of the Red Bulls for the 6 seasons that he was. So just incredible. Wanted to touch on that. Atlanta United coming to town on September 21st. Hopefully there will be some nice ceremony for Dax. That would be really nice. Yeah. So getting all of that aside, I think now we can talk about the transfer window, which is officially over for MLS, but not over for the rest of the world. So MLS can't really bring in any new players unless they're a free agent, but other leagues around the world, especially in Europe, can still pluck players, even though our window closed. And we actually are seeing some examples of that for the Red Bulls. So this window goes all the way back to the Frankie Amaya departure in June, which was definitely a bit of a shock. Our starting midfielder gone, and he had a pretty good half season, just starting in the midfield with Daniel Edelman in the double pivot, and he just really had a massive impact. And to see him go to Liga MX, to Luca, a new chapter, great. Excited for him. He wanted that move, new experience. I think it's great for him. Just left a hole for the Red Bulls. And so that was kind of the tone that was set for the whole window of we need to fill in for this loss. We need a reinforcement in central defensive midfield, preferably an 8, more of a box-to-box guy, but still very defensive and like playing in the double pivot again with Daniel Edelman or Ronald Donkor. We've seen him get a lot more minutes too, which has been nice. Yeah, I think another interesting aspect of the transfer window in terms of outgoing things is the 2 outgoing loans that we've had. AJ Marcucci going to Finland at IF Gnistan. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but he's actually been, I think, starting most of their games, and he seems to, just from his Instagram, he seems like he's loving it there. He's having a good time. He saved a penalty in his first game there. Like, there's some really incredible photos that their club posted of him, like with the fans and the videos of him just screaming and going crazy. And like, I think it's a good chapter for him. He needed minutes as a third string goalkeeper. He wasn't even really playing with Red Bulls too, because Aiden Stokes and Rutkowski, right, and also Dallas Odell are getting a lot of those minutes for Red Bulls too. So AJ, I'm happy for him. We'll see how it goes. He's on loan there through the end of 2024, and we'll see what happens. I think a big part of him coming back would probably be contingent on if they pick up Ryan Mera's contract option or not. Ryan Mera has one more. Well, he's out of years on his contract, but he has one option year, and if they pick that up, AJ Marcucci might not really be coming back. If they move on from Ryan Mera, which I hope they don't. Ryan is my favorite player. As a nostalgic Red Bulls fan, Ryan Mera is my favorite player on the roster because of how long he's been here and just reminds me of my youth. So if they move on from him, sad, but I think that would open the door for AJ to come back and be the second string keeper, but we'll see about that. And then the Juan Jose Mina loan to Estrela de Amadora in Portugal. Great to get him off the roster. Just a first team signing last summer that has not yet debuted, is barely featuring for Red Bulls 2. Get him to a place where he's not on this roster and can hopefully develop. And if we can use him in a year, great. If not, move on. Not a great piece of business from Dennis Hamlet, but it's something that I think is good. We just offload him off the roster, and he hopefully gets a new opportunity where he can shine and grow and develop. I think those were just 2 really useful departures, so to speak, because it's temporary departure. I think those will be good clubs for those 2 players, and hopefully they can come back with a lot of good experience, or we will sadly move on from them. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the 2 failures of the transfer window. The main one was Jean-Philippe Gubabin. I don't fully know if it's Gubamine or how to pronounce it, but I'm going to call him Jean-Philippe Gubabin. He had a stint at Everton, but was playing with Dunkirk in Ligue 2 in France. A big target, like a former Everton guy, Fabrizio Romano, reporting about this. I was like, okay, a lot of Red Bulls fans were like, yeah, this guy's injury prone, which is not ideal. But not a bad center midfield signing. Like a guy who is semi-known in the footballing world. And whatever, it seemed like it was locked up. Fabrizio Romano reporting that he passes his medical, and just did not work out. The deal collapsed. The deal fully collapsed. It's something I haven't really seen much of. And there's more never before seen transfer window drama that I'm getting to after Jean-Philippe. But yeah, it was reported that he failed his medical, but recently, I think last week, his agent was interviewed and said it wasn't about the medical, it was about the league not having flexibility, or him not having flexibility rather, in the final year of his contract. Apparently how it works in Europe is like that's more up for negotiation, but with MLS it's like if the club picks up your option, that's not really a negotiable thing. It's like, no, like we are holding you to this contract and this contract option that you signed. And according to his agent, they didn't like that inflexibility. Okay, I mean, whatever. Believe what you want to believe. If his agent is saying that, maybe that's really true. But regardless, just did not work out. And that was our first target. And just upsetting that center midfield target fell through and we had to kind of go to our next center midfield target. But before we get there, Wiktor Bogasz from the Polish second division with Miedź Legnica, apparently linked to Juventus as well. Juventus bid for him. So the Red Bulls apparently outbid Juventus for this young forward, which everyone was like, okay, like where is the proven DP striker? We had the Memphis Depay rumors that like I never thought those would really pan out based on what his camp was apparently asking. The Red Bulls were never going to pay that much money, but it was still a new striker, and it was like, okay, this guy is unproven, sure. He's 20, sure. But if a club like Juve are interested in this guy, and the Red Bulls are outbidding Juve, that's positive. I was like, genuinely, this is cool. This is genuinely cool. Also, my last name, Richman, Bogasz, when you translate it from Polish, translates to Richman. So that also made me very excited. Someone with my last name in Polish, obviously, coming to the Red Bulls. I'm like, that's sick. Give me my Polish brother. Like that would be incredible. It did not work out. And another never before seen transfer window moment from this lifetime fan. He put out a public statement that he was not ready to make the move to MLS and didn't feel like he was ready for that level. He also said that he like really valued his club in Poland, and they really like were involved in his process when he got injured, and he, through tough times, like they've been by his side. And like, I get that loyalty, great. I just think it's interesting, like from our perspective as not only like Red Bull, which is one of the world's biggest brands, and New York, which is one of the world's best cities, that you would reject a move for that. Like it's just like our hubris, our ego of being in this area, one of the greatest cities in the world. And the amount of money and opportunity that Red Bull football provides, whether you like the Red Bull ownership or not, just a fascinating result for this guy to be like, no, I don't want to be in New York with Emil Forsberg, player who's won the DFB Pokal with RB Leipzig legend, Champions League experience. I'm going to stay in Poland. You know what? All power to him. I'm not really going to like bag on the guy. But it was just really funny from our perspective. It's like, wow, we are getting snubbed by a 20-year-old second division Polish striker. We could have broken the transfer fee record for the Polish second division. It was not to be. It was not a match made in heaven. So no striker acquisitions in the summer transfer window. But the one piece that did stick was Felipe Carballo from Grêmio, the same club Elias Manuel came from, but he had more of like a youth player role. Like he didn't have as many appearances as Carballo has had for Grêmio. Had a pretty big impact with Nacional, which is not Atlético Nacional from Medellin, Colombia. It's Nacional from Uruguay, in Montevideo, I believe, where he's also from. So he also has 7 caps for the Uruguay national team. So this is like a legitimate South American baller. Like, no one who's had a sniff at Europe, so, take that for what you want. But, like, there are so many gems in South America that other teams have in MLS. Lucho Acosta being, I think, the biggest one at a midfield position. Cucho Hernandez, obviously. There are a lot of South American players that just have flair, And it was a similar thing with Kaku in 2018. We all know how that ended, but we just don't have those players with that South American midfield flair. And maybe Carballo is that. He is on here, or he's on a loan here with the Red Bulls. He is a designated player, and this is the first time the Red Bulls have occupied all 3 designated player spots during a season since 2019, when it was Bradley Wright Phillips, Josh Sims, funnily enough, and Kaku. So, yes, Josh Sims, the goal in the playoffs against Philly, and then disappeared the next year, obviously because of the COVID-19 pandemic. There were wrinkles in why he disappeared. But this is an indication to me that the Red Bulls are spending money. They are spending money. The Red Bulls obviously are not reaching the heights of what all the fans want in terms of spending and star power. I agree with that. I am on board with that. But if we look and compare this year to last year, we filled all 3 of our DP spots. We are now in the top 10 of spending, obviously, with Emil Forsberg, who, not an incredible first season for him with his injury and being out for a lot of games. And then we bring in a DP central midfielder on loan who I have high hopes for once he gets his visa. I hope he can slot in September. I don't think he'll be available against Philly, but if he could be available off the bench or starting against Sporting Kansas City on September 7th, I'll be happy. We do tend to leave our business late, but Carballo is also not our first choice in the window. That was Gabamin, who did not pan out. So, not ideal. Not ideal to have another summer signing where it's like, the visa, and like by the time they get there are like 5 games left in the season. But I'm optimistic about Felipe Carballo. I'm excited for him to be in the midfield. Ronald Donkor has been growing. He has been getting good minutes alongside Daniel Edelman. But we just need that depth. We just need that depth in midfield. And we need a starting caliber central midfielder who can really be the engine behind the engine of Emil Forsberg when he gets back. And really just be a dependable, sturdy number 8. Like, I will take that. So I'm really excited to see how he pans out. Hopefully in a few weeks we can see him. And then another final piece of the transfer window is the John Tolkien Bundesliga news. I mean, John Tolkien's always been linked to a European move for a few years now, and it's kind of surprising he has not made the jump yet. If it doesn't happen in the next few days, it'll probably happen in the winter, and I think that's fine. JMI hasn't necessarily had like the most standout, incredible season, but he's been dependable. He's been normal. He had his free kick goal against Orlando. Like, he's still balling out, just I think a bit more understated than previous years. He definitely is due to make a move to Europe, and like, us fans should not be surprised. So we'll likely have him through the end of the season at this point, unless something happens in the next 4 days, but we'll see. Something that is more likely to happen in the next 4 days is the Bento Estrella departure. He is our youngest signing of all time, has no first team minutes. He is now 18. He was signed a day before his 15th birthday. A lot of minutes with Red Bulls too. I think really solid player, showed some promise, but I think from what I remember hearing reports when he was signed and in the months and years after, it really was not a signing for the Red Bulls to develop into a first team player. It was really a signing of like, this guy's a dual national. He has aspirations of playing in Europe and Portugal. He's Portuguese. And now he's linked to Sporting CP in Lisbon, one of the biggest clubs in Portugal. And that just got reported this morning by The Athletic that he is on his way out. And again, it's like devastating to lose a player of his talent, but if he was really never fully in the cards and he was more of like a project to sell on, that's fine. If you're not getting first team minutes for me and it's been 4 years, I think it's okay to move on and be like, we need to find a player who can slot in and get meaningful first team minutes. If it's not going to be Bento, it can be someone else. Let's, cash in, The thing is, we won't really be cashing in because I think he'll be leaving on a free transfer. But if he does get sold on in the future from Lisbon, if he balls out there for whatever reason, the Red Bulls do get a sell-on percentage of that, which is positive. So looking at this transfer window, it's basically like 4 departures with Frankie Amaya, Bento Estrella, Marcucci, and Juan Jose Mina. Carballo is coming in, and Tolkien will probably be staying. In a weird way, an eventful transfer window, but also only 1 new addition. So I can definitely understand why some fans feel snubbed. I would have loved to see a new attacking piece, but it's really going to be important for Dante van Zier to just perform. He just has to perform, and he has to score goals, and he has to be that designated player hero that his paycheck is warranting in these final 8 games. More assists, great. If he assists consistently, I'll take it. We're playing in our 4-4-2 shape with Sandro. Like, if it's him and Manuel up top, and he's assisting Elias, and like that's what strikers need, like the striker partnership to build off of. But he really needs to make an impact, or in the off season, I'd say time to fully move on from Dante van Zier. So I'm gonna move on to a few questions or topics that I picked out from the little question thing I put on my story last week about topics you guys would want me to cover. So this is going to be kind of like the fan mail section to close out the podcast. And maybe we'll add more segments in the future. We'll see. We probably will. But this is just the first round of what you guys, the mailbag, if you will, what you guys have had to say. So starting off with Josh Gubaruk. He just asked, Depay to RBNY. And that was a really cool little rumor. I was like, okay, Memphis Depay, Red Bull athlete, big European signing, would drive attendance for sure. Would be a really cool signing. His camp was apparently asking for some crazy salary that was 20 million a year plus add-ons or something, or maybe even more than that. So no way was that going to happen. I think he's now close to signing with Flamengo or some team in Brazil. I wish that would have happened. I mean, that would have been an insane signing. That would have been a signing where we would have been like, okay, front office, not messing around. You bring in Emil Forsberg in the winter. You bring in Memphis Depay in the summer. We're in the Thierry Henry days again. I never was really optimistic about it, but would have been a really cool, what if. I'm always looking at the Red Bull athletes. If you're sponsored by Red Bull, come play with the Red Bulls. Neymar, a big one. Neymar is the biggest one. Obviously, his career has taken a really weird turn with him being in Saudi Arabia and injured all the time and whatever, but if you sign Neymar, even if he doesn't play much, if it could be a Messi type signing for this team. So that I always got to keep your eye on the Red Bull athletes. That's how I roll. Those are my realistic dreams, I guess. Moving on to Landon Mads Landon Mads. Please discuss the Red Bulls press tactic. I personally don't believe this style works at all. So the style did really work in the early days with Jesse Marsch, Energy Drink Soccer. The league did not know how to keep up. That was a big part of why we won the 2015 Supporters' Shield and part of 2018. The league was starting to catch on by then. But it was just a new style. Go. Every ball is a 50-50. We are treating every opportunity where you have the ball, we're going to run at you, we're going to turn it over, we're going to cause a mistake, and 1-2, boom, we're scoring. And that worked. In the beginning, it worked for a few years. Dominance. I mean, Supporters' Shield 2015, we topped the Eastern Conference of 2016. 2017, we were a bit farther down the standings. Still had a successful year. Made it to the U.S. Open Cup final. 2018, we won the Supporters' Shield. And now a lot of teams are really mimicking the high press and adapting it, and teams know how to defend it. The good thing that Sandro Schwartz has brought in his first year as manager is he's not reliant on the press. The press is a big part of it, but he's evolved it. He has evolved it to be we're a possession team. We can be a possession team, and we can also force a turnover and win balls high up, in the final third, 1-2 pass, boom, score goal. You can see that in our most recent goal against Charlotte. We built from the back. Noah Isla running Dante van Zier, to Elias Manuel. That is a goal that would not fully exist in a lot of previous Red Bull seasons. So there are goals and there are ways that Sandro is making his team attack that aren't just dependent on the hell-bent high press. And that's great. I think that's beautiful. It's an evolution of the game. It's something that still has its flaws, for sure. I think it does work. I'm a big fan of like not absorbing press and trying to actually really be proactive, and I think it can be exciting soccer. But we just have to see more nuance, and Sandro's kind of building in more of that nuance and not being so dependent on just pressing. And that's, I think, a beautiful part about the evolution of Red Bull soccer. Let's see if it keeps going. Timothy K asks, or how should we incorporate Van Zier into the team better, and different formations and styles the Red Bulls could use. I think Van Zier, in Belgium, he was an incredible goal scorer because he was their target man. He's not necessarily the target person in this lineup. If we're playing with 2 up top, and he's making these sweeping runs at the edge of the 18-yard box and, whipping balls in, low balls, really, not really big crosses, he's not really playing in his preferred position. He's not playing as an out-and-out 9. Not saying that he is necessarily fully an out-and-out 9, but I'm really curious to see what it would be like if we didn't play Manuel at all. If we played a midfield, like a front 3 of like Morgan, Forsberg, and then like Carmona maybe, or Harper. I like Harper on the wing for sure. And you just treat Dante as like he's the guy who's going to score the goals. Would he score? Maybe. He did in Belgium. I'd be curious in terms of the different formations and styles. I think it would be really cool to go back to like a Bradley Wright Phillips, target man number 9 up top. We haven't really had a lot of that. We've had the Fabio Klamala year in 2021, 2022. Like, I don't know. We just didn't really have like Klamala didn't even really do much. He kind of did, but Lewis Morgan was the leading goal scorer. 2023. I mean, last year, Omir Fernandez was our leading goal scorer. So a lot of these formations just haven't really been conducive to like a singular number 9 banging in goals every week for fun like Bradley Wright Phillips did. So I'd be curious to just see us try out like a 4-2-3-1 again or something like that. We've seen a little bit of that, but it's more often than not like 2 up top, and it's been okay. It's been dangerous at times, but with the right striker, just having a person up top who is your guy, your killer, your menace in around goal, whether it's poaching goals like Bradley Wright Phillips or occasionally scoring more bangers like Lewis Morgan does. Just a player that can do that dirty work and be that guy who can get a ball played to him and just make a goal happen. So that's something I think the Red Bulls could use. Yes, we have really had a striker curse since Bradley Wright Phillips left. It has been, he left at the end of 2019, but he didn't really play much that season. So really call it since the end of 2018, we have not had a number 9 who is decisive and is leading this team in goals, in like double-digit goal seasons. So that's been 6 years without that. And that's a long time. That's a really, really long time. Dante Van Zier was the biggest goal-scoring signing we've had. All the other strikers paled in comparison to the numbers that Dante was putting up in Belgium with Union Saint-Gilloise. And he just has not hit the mark. I'm giving him the end of the season. I really am. I'm holding on. I'm like grasping on like the edge, holding on to the edge of a cliff for Dante. And like, at the end of the season, if he doesn't score a few more goals and really convince me that he's a killer, I will not be hanging on that ledge anymore. So we'll see. Really pivotal few months for him and his future in New York. For sure. NYJ Adrian asks, do you think there's a legitimate chance Red Bull sells? The topic that a lot of people think about anytime the Red Bulls aren't in a good winning stretch, seeing other teams do better things than the Red Bulls in terms of player signings, in terms of performances, trophies, what have you. It's like, sell the club. Sell the club now. Sell the club to an owner who will care about winning trophies. And guys, I don't think there's any legitimate chance Red Bull will sell. I don't think we should really be hoping for that. I think we need to just hope that the model changes. The amount of money and investment that Red Bull brings in is an indicator that they are not selling this club. Whatever, just I think the biggest thing is the fact that they are privately funding this new massive training facility that will be opening hopefully next year, that is going to be breaking ground soon. Privately funded by Red Bull. Perfect. They're investing in the academy. They're investing in youth. They're investing in selling these players to Europe, whether it's to their sister clubs, which is not even that common. It's a myth. It's really a myth. The only 2 players that the Red Bulls have sent to other sister clubs are Tyler Adams and Caden Clark, and Jesse Marsh as like a manager. We have borrowed from the other Red Bull clubs more than we have sent. So for anyone who thinks the Red Bulls are a farm team to Salzburg and Leipzig, you're just simply wrong. I hope that wasn't harsh. I'm just trying to show you guys that like we are not a feeder club for other Red Bulls clubs. What we are is a club that develops young talent that will be sold to Europe eventually. Last week there were those quotes of the Sandro Schwartz interview in Bild where he said like, I wasn't told I should be winning trophies right away. I was told I should be developing young players. There was the Mario Gomez interview last week, and a lot of Red Bulls fans are just really like damn, like 2 days in a row we get hit with these like Red Bull soccer interviews, and like it just really resurfaced the feelings of like sell this club, dude. Sell this club to an owner who will readily compete for MLS Cup. The next question is from Fred Isbaro. Do you think the Red Bulls can win MLS Cup with this roster? And as a segue to that, I don't think they can. I don't think this team can win MLS Cup this year. I would love to see us get out of round 1, get through the best of 3 series, and get to the conference semifinals, and maybe push to the conference finals. But like, if we come up against Miami or Columbus or any of those teams, like we are cooked. We're going to be cooked. We don't have that upper echelon of like, we have a striker who is going to be a killer goal scorer. We have a complete, well-rounded team that's going to win us trophies. If we have 12 draws on the season right now, how many of those could have been turned into wins with a legitimate striker or a bit more talent up front? I would say at least half. At least half of those could be wins. And I think that is just really where you lose me with that whole MLS Cup thing. I don't think this is our year. I think this is a good season, all things considered, but definitely not our year. And going back to Red Bull selling the club, I don't think it's happening with the amount of investment they're putting in, with, even just like the Leipzig teams visiting here and playing at Red Bull Arena and meeting with the Red Bulls players and the New York Red Bulls players, that is. And just those lines are kind of blurring. I think the partnership is really strong. Mario Gomez, head of or technical director of Red Bull Soccer, being here, it is a well-oiled machine for the development and the pathway. It is not a well-oiled machine in terms of the trophies, and I just don't think that there's a legitimate chance Red Bull sells with the amount of investment they're putting in. If they were not putting in investment in terms of the academy and the foundation, I would say they don't care anymore, but they care. They care about developing talent. They care about sending it off to Europe. And they care about those Tyler Adams storylines or, development paths like that. We love celebrating the youth. And don't get me wrong, I think it's fun. It's cool. It's cool to see Julian Hall be the youngest goal scorer in club history, the second youngest in league history. Like, that is a cool moment. Those moments are not going to win you trophies. And I don't think there's a chance that Red Bull will sell. I would just love to have a tweak in the model. You're seeing that a little bit with Emil Forsberg coming in. It's like, okay, we're spending a lot again. I wish we could get a big player like that that's outside of the Red Bull ecosystem. Sometimes it feels like the Red Bulls can only buy players that know the high press, that know the Red Bull way. But there are little like hints that like, okay, like they're gonna maybe try to do a bit more like of a veteran setup. They're gonna fill up the designated player spots again, which hasn't happened in 5 years. So there are little things that give me hope that like they're gonna invest more in the roster in terms of winning a cup. I think it's maybe unrealistic to expect Sandro to take this team to MLS Cup his first season, but if you really invest in this project and you give Sandro the resources to succeed, and have a mix of the young players with the old players, the veterans, the designated players, hopefully maybe a big name or two here or there, that's a recipe for success, and that's what MLS is about. Every team has a pretty good academy. Every team is sending off at least like 1 or 2 players to other teams, whether they're in Europe or elsewhere, each season. The league is getting better and better at developing our own talent, and then just the amount of names that are coming in as well. So it's a league of both sides, and the best teams have a little bit of both. So that's my long-winded answer. I don't think Red Bull will be selling, but I think I speak for all of us that we just hope that Red Bull uses its money in slightly different ways and gives more nuance to the Red Bull philosophy. So that concludes the first episode of the New York Red Bulls Experience podcast. I don't know if there's a better name for it than just whatever, the Red Bulls Experience podcast. I don't know if there's much else that I can really call it. But I hope you guys enjoyed. This was fun. Definitely a lot of me rambling. I think getting a co-host could do wonders just to make the flow nicer and give some different opinions, different voices. This definitely felt like a YouTube style like video essay, right? But I hope you guys enjoyed. Just please give me any and all feedback. Would appreciate any and all feedback, any ideas you have, anything I missed, anything that you guys would love to see. I'm curious to experiment in this format, and I think it could be a really cool place to bring on a bunch of different people and talk Red Bull New York, baby, and MLS and American soccer, just anything in our spheres. Support local. That's all I got to say. Going back to my the reason for my fandom. And yeah, let's go Red Bulls. Let's have a great final run in the 2024 season and push for our 15th consecutive playoff berth. So this has been Luca from the Red Bulls Experience, and I'll see you guys next time.